Good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Shanmugapriya, Professor and HOD of Biochemistry at Government Thoothukudi Medical College. And I'm here to discuss about clinical applications of anion gap. So the main reason behind why we thought of discussing this topic today is we were discussing MCQs in various groups, and we found that students find it difficult to interpret ABG charts based on anion gap. And not just students, even for clinical practitioners, when it comes to ABG report interpretation, it's I won't say it's difficult to interpret, it's just that the basic concepts have to be made clear. So the main objective of this session is to clarify any doubt that might exist behind the term anion gap. So what are the objectives of my session? Number one, I would be telling you about what is metabolic acidosis and what are the types of metabolic acidosis. And then I'll tell you the definition of gap, not just the definition of anion gap. I'll tell you what it exactly means and how to use the value of anion gap in classifying metabolic acidosis, or to put it in clinical terms, how to identify the probable or possible cause of metabolic acidosis in a patient. Yeah, so that would be my next objective. And then the possibilities of misinterpretation of anion gap. Yeah, sometimes you look at an ABG chart and you think it's a case of high anion gap metabolic acidosis, but just by looking at a number, it is not going to be a right way of interpretation. Yeah, there might be many other, because it's a calculated value. Anion gap by itself includes 4 values. So there is always a possibility of misinterpretation of anion gap, which we all should have in mind. And because there is a possibility of misinterpretation of anion gap, we calculate another factor, which is called as delta-delta ratio. So I'll be telling you about what is delta-delta ratio and how to use this delta-delta ratio to find out hidden acid-base disorders. So these are the objectives of my session. So to begin with, what is anion gap? Anion gap, I'll tell you first the definition of anion gap. Anion gap is defined as the difference between unmeasured anions and unmeasured cations. Yeah, this is just a definition. It's defined as a difference between unmeasured anions and unmeasured cations. Now, what does it rely on? Why do we have to calculate this? An understanding of that would be clear if you know what is metabolic acidosis. Okay, so what is metabolic acidosis? I think you have all been muted, but you can always give your answers through chat box. And is there a possibility of them unmuting themselves? Can the host answer this? Is the host here? Is there a possibility of all participants unmuting as and when they want? Yeah, you can give your answers in chat box. Yeah. So what is metabolic acidosis? Give me a minute. Yeah, metabolic acidosis, the decrease in bicarbonate level in the body. Right, Rishikesh Naik has answered it right. Okay, and Meghna has also answered it right. So what is acidosis? Acidosis is a decrease in pH. We all know the normal pH is 7.36 to 7.44. So what is acidosis? Whenever there is a drop in pH below this value, we know it will be called as acidosis. And what are the 2 causes of drop in pH? There can be a drop in pH whenever there is a decrease in the bicarbonate level in the system. because you all know bicarbonate is a buffer which is supposed to buffer all acids. So suppose body does not have enough bicarbonate, all metabolic acids accumulate. So that's one cause of acidosis. Another cause of acidosis is accumulation of carbon dioxide, because you know carbon dioxide reacts with water to give rise to carbonic acid. That's an acid, right? So the two possibilities of acidosis is a decrease in bicarbonate or a decrease in the buffer system that is available in the person, or an increase in PCO2. If it's because of an increase in PCO2, obviously what will you call it as? You will call it as respiratory acidosis. Yeah, you'll call it as respiratory acidosis. Whereas if it's because of a decrease in bicarbonate, you call it as metabolic acidosis. So we are clear till this. Okay, so you can unmute yourself whenever you can. Yeah, you can start answering. So now we are clear about metabolic acidosis. Now, what possibly do you think can be the causes of metabolic acidosis, and what do you think that can be causes of decrease in bicarbonate? There can be a decrease in bicarbonate because of two reasons. Just think logically. Yeah, bicarbonate in your body can decrease because of two reasons. One is increase in utilization of bicarbonate. When your body uses bicarbonate, there is going to be a decrease in bicarbonate. Or whenever there is an increase in the loss of bicarbonate. I don't need a slideshow right now, host. I'm going to use only the pen. Is it visible? My paint, is it visible? No, one second. One second. Is it visible now? Fine. So we have discussed what is metabolic acidosis. I said metabolic acidosis, a decrease in bicarbonate. What are the causes of decrease in bicarbonate? One is increase in the utilization of bicarbonate, or the other one is increase in the loss of bicarbonate. Okay. So when will there be increase in the utilization of bicarbonate? Whenever an abnormal acid gets generated in your body. It can be any acid. So any acid which gets generated in your body is going to utilize bicarbonate, which is a buffer, and that's going to give rise to H2CO3 and A-. So what happens in this condition? Bicarbonate has been utilized. There is a decrease in bicarbonate that causes metabolic acidosis. So this is one category of causes. Now, when will there be loss of bicarbonate? There are only two routes in which you can lose bicarbonate. You understand this? There are only two routes in which you can lose your bicarbonate. One is GIT. Yeah, the other one is kidney. When will you lose bicarbonate? Through any form of diarrhea. Yeah, when there is diarrhea, you know the intestinal mucus gets lost. And intestinal mucus is rich in bicarbonate. So in your textbook, you might find a long list of GI causes of loss of bicarbonate. They might have mentioned few terms, complex terms like ureterosigmoidostomy. Yeah, you don't have to worry much about this term. All that it means is in ureterosigmoidostomy, the ureter is linked to the sigmoid colon. So the urine irritates the sigmoid colon and there is going to be diarrhea. So ultimately it's a diarrhea which is a cause of loss of bicarbonate through GIT. When will there be renal loss of bicarbonate? Yeah, when do you expect a renal loss of bicarbonate? I'll give you an example. Renal tubular acidosis. For example, proximal renal tubular acidosis. Okay. So what happens in proximal renal tubular acidosis? Do you know that PCT is supposed to reclaim every bicarbonate that is being filtered along the glomeruli? Yeah, when you prepare a when you make a glomerular filtrate, Yeah, when you make a glomerular filtrate, everything gets filtered. Yeah, even bicarbonate gets filtered. But can you afford to miss bicarbonate in your urine? You can't, because bicarbonate is a major plasma buffer. So you have to reclaim every bicarbonate in PCT. So proximal convoluted tubule is devoted for bicarbonate reclamation. So whenever there is proximal renal tubular acidosis, PCT fails to reclaim bicarbonate and all bicarbonate would be lost in urine. So any form of renal tubular acidosis, that is renal loss of bicarbonate. So these are the categories of causes of metabolic acidosis. Give you a quick recap. Metabolic acidosis is a decrease in pH that is caused by a decrease in bicarbonate. Decrease in bicarbonate can happen in two scenarios. One is increased utilization of bicarbonate, as which happens whenever an abnormal acid is generated in your body. Or it can be lost from your system. Loss of bicarbonate from your system can happen in one or the other routes. One is GIT, the other one is kidney. GI loss of bicarbonate happens in diarrhea. Renal loss of bicarbonate happens in renal tubular acidosis. Okay, now let us get back to anion gap. So how did I define anion gap? Anion gap is defined as a difference between unmeasured anions and unmeasured cations. And this anion gap is based on the fact that your circulation is neutral. It is electrically neutral. And to maintain electrical neutrality in your circulation or in your blood, sum of all cations should be equal to sum of all anions. Yeah, sum of all cations should be equal to sum of all anions. So what are the cations present in the circulation? The major cation that is present in your circulation is sodium. And apart from that, we also have potassium. Now, sodium plus potassium by themselves constitute 95% of cations. Now, apart from these cations, I'm going to name all the other cations as unmeasured cations. You understand this? The sodium plus potassium plus unmeasured cations should be equal to, what are the anions of your circulation? Chloride, bicarbonate, and this would constitute 86%. Now, apart from chloride and bicarbonate, I'm going to call the remaining anions as unmeasured anions. And because we know anion gap is the difference between unmeasured anion and unmeasured cation, I want you to rearrange this formula. So unmeasured anion minus unmeasured cation is equal to, yeah, it is equal to sodium plus potassium minus chloride and bicarbonate. Are you clear? So what is the formula? First, I told you the definition, which is the difference between unmeasured anion and unmeasured cation. Now, what is the formula for anion? Is equal to sodium plus potassium minus, within brackets, chloride and bicarbonate. So what are we going to use this anion gap for? To find out the cause of metabolic acidosis. Suppose the metabolic acidosis is because of production of an abnormal acid. Because of production of an abnormal acid, I said the abnormal acid can be named as HA, that reacts with the bicarbonate buffer system to form H2CO3 A minus. Yeah, to form H2CO3 and A minus. And this A minus is an unmeasured anion that's getting generated in your circulation. So what happens to this formula for anion gap is equal to unmeasured anion minus unmeasured cation. There is an unmeasured anion concentration. So anion gap will be increased. Suppose you're looking at an ABG chart and you see that it's a case of increased anion gap metabolic acidosis. That is a clue that is given to you that this case of metabolic acidosis is caused by a production of an abnormal acid, which means you have to start looking for what abnormal acid is getting generated. The abnormal acid can be keto acids. Can anybody tell me one keto acid? Unmute yourself and answer. Any keto acid which you remember? Acetoacetate, Rishikesh Nayak, you're right. Acetoacetate is nothing but acetoacetic acid. So this acetoacetic acid dissociates into acetoacetate anion, yeah, which is an unmeasured anion, increasing the anion gap. So increased anion gap metabolic acidosis can be because of ketoacidosis, or it can be because of lactic acidosis. What happens in lactic acidosis? Lactate anion accumulates, and that is again an unmeasured anion, increasing the anion gap. Or it can be any alcohol poisoning. It can be methanol poisoning or ethanol poisoning or ethylene glycol poisoning. So what happens in the presence of any of, can anybody tell me? Rishikesh Naik, you can unmute yourself and answer. Can you tell me what happens in the presence of any of these alcohols? Or Shweta? Shweta, Varsha can try answering. Yes. In the presence of any alcohol, it's metabolized by alcohol dehydrogenase to form an aldehyde. The aldehyde is metabolized by aldehyde dehydrogenase to form an acid. Don't you all know that? So if it's methanol, it becomes formic acid. Shweta is right. Yeah, it forms formic acid. If it's ethanol, it forms acetic acid. If it's ethylene glycol, it forms oxalic acid. Right? So formic acid forms formate anion, acetic acid forms acetate anion, oxalic acid forms oxalate anion. Okay? So all these anions will increase the anion gap. It can happen in chronic kidney disease. What happens in chronic kidney disease? Yeah, Dr. Vikas, you want to answer? So in chronic kidney disease, you know, normally kidney is supposed to filter all acids from your body. So in chronic kidney disease, all these metabolic acids accumulate, and these metabolic anion increasing the anion gap. So this means you don't have to memorize any mnemonic. Yeah, you must have read in your textbooks mnemonics like mud pies. Yeah, which is like methanol poisoning, uremia, digitalis toxicity, paraldehyde toxicity, INH, lactic acidosis, ethylene glycol poisoning, salicylate poisoning. Do you think you need such a mnemonic to memorize causes of high anion gap metabolic acidosis anymore? You don't need. Yeah, all that you need to know, you need to do is understand the concept. When will there be an increase in anion gap? Increase in an anion gap only when an abnormal acid accumulates. So now I have to look for a source of abnormal acid. Is it a case of ketoacidosis? Is it a case of lactic acidosis? Is it probable that a person is poisoned with methanol or ethanol or ethylene glycol? Is that clear? So salicylate poisoning indirectly causes lactic acidosis. It's not something different from lactic acidosis. Do you get it? And then chronic kidney disease. So that's about high anion gap metabolic acidosis caused only by production of an abnormal acid. Now, what if the metabolic acidosis is caused by a production of, caused by loss of bicarbonate? I said bicarbonate can be lost either through GIT or through kidney. In either case, whenever your system loses bicarbonate, your system reclaims chloride. Yeah, it can be a GI loss, loss. In either case, if you're losing bicarbonate, your system reclaims chloride, another anion. How does it do it? If it's a GI loss of bicarbonate, whenever the enterocyte loses bicarbonate, it is through bicarbonate antiporter. When bicarbonate is secreted into the intestine, reciprocally, what is taken in? Chloride is taken in. So what happens to blood chloride level? It increases. Do you understand this? So in GI loss of bicarbonate, blood chloride level increases. Similarly, in renal loss of bicarbonate, wherein if PCT fails to reclaim bicarbonate, please remember only when PCT reclaims bicarbonate, along with that it reclaims sodium also. So whenever PCT fails to reclaim bicarbonate, not only bicarbonate is not reabsorbed, sodium is also not reabsorbed. So there is excess sodium in the tubular fluid. When this excess sodium reaches ascending limb of loop of Henle, your ascending limb of loop of Henle reabsorbs the excess sodium along with chloride. Have you heard of sodium potassium 2 chloride co-transporters? You must have, right? Furosemide. Yeah, loop diuretics. They act by inhibiting this. So when that transporter tries to reclaim all sodium, along with that, what does it also reclaim? It reclaims chloride. So excess chloride accumulates in the circulation in both GI loss of bicarbonate and in renal loss of bicarbonate. That is why you call these conditions as hyperchloremic, metabolic acidosis. That is why you call these conditions as hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis. Have you all seen this term in your textbooks? Tell me yes or no. You must have seen this term in your textbooks, right? Hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis. What does that mean? It means conditions, metabolic acidosis is caused by loss of bicarbonate either through GIT or through kidney. Okay. In that case, what happens to anion gap? What is the formula for anion gap? I told you, anion gap is equal to sodium plus potassium minus chloride and bicarbonate. Yeah, and in hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis, the decrease in bicarbonate is compensated by a chloride. You understand this? The decrease in bicarbonate is compensated by an increase in chloride. So what happens to anion gap? There is no change in anion gap. So anion gap will be normal. So when you are looking at an ABG chart, if you see that the anion gap is normal, yeah, it's a clue that is given to you that this case of metabolic acidosis is caused by a loss of bicarbonate either through GIT or through kidney. Are you clear? Yeah, this is the application of anion gap. So the first two objectives of this session are over. We have defined what is anion gap. We have classified metabolic acidosis as high anion gap metabolic acidosis and normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. And we know what is high anion gap metabolic acidosis. What is it? It is because of accumulation of an abnormal acid. I've given you examples of causes. What are the examples? It can be ketoacidosis, lactic acidosis, poisoning by any alcohol like methanol or ethanol or ethylene glycol, or it can be chronic kidney disease. Yeah, and apart from these common causes, as we have discussed in our Telegram group, 5-oxoprolinuria. Yeah, 5-oxoprolinuria. 5-oxoprolin is an acid. So that's one of the causes of increased anion gap metabolic acidosis in a neonate. Okay, so that's about increased anion gap metabolic acidosis. Now, what are the causes of normal anion gap metabolic acidosis? Here, the bicarbonate is lost either through GIT or kidney. Example for GI loss of bicarbonate is diarrhea. Example for renal loss of bicarbonate is renal tubular acidosis type 1, type 2, type 4. Okay. Now, what are the possibilities of misinterpretations of anion gap? When do you think there is a possibility that anion gap gets misinterpreted? For which I'm going to write again the definition of anion gap, which is the difference between unmeasured anion and unmeasured cation. I'm going to write the formula for anion gap, which is sodium plus potassium within brackets, chloride plus bicarbonate. What's the normal value of anion gap? I think I didn't tell you that. Normal value for anion gap is 12 plus or minus 2. So it's between 10 and 14, which is normal. So 15 and above is increased anion gap metabolic acidosis. Yeah. So when is there a possibility of this anion gap getting misinterpreted? Whenever there is a change in one of the unmeasured anions concentration, for example, hypoalbuminemia. So what happens in hypoalbuminemia? Albumin is one of the unmeasured anions in your circulation. So there is a decrease in the unmeasured anion, which will be compensated by an increase in the measured anion. For electrical neutrality, whenever there is a decrease in one anion concentration, the other anion concentration increases. So in hypoalbuminemia, to compensate for a decrease in there is an increase in the measured anion concentration. So this part of the formula, the value increases. Yeah, when that value increases, what happens to anion gap will be falsely low. Do you understand this? Anion gap will be falsely low in hypoalbuminemia, which means there is a possibility of you misdiagnosing an increased anion gap metabolic acidosis as a normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Do you understand this? That is why before you interpret anion gap, you should have the value of albumin in hand. Only if albumin value is normal, you're going to take the value as such from the report. If albumin value is less, if it's less than 4, there is a correction factor for anion gap. Anion gap corrected is equal to 4 minus serum albumin. That's why I said if albumin value is less than 4, you have to have a correction. So 4 minus serum albumin, whatever albumin the person's blood shows, into 2.5 plus the calculated anion gap. Whatever anion gap you have calculated, it is falsely low. So to compensate for that, you're going to increase it. By what factor are you going to increase? It is 4 minus serum albumin into 2.5. That's about corrected anion gap. And another condition wherein an increased anion gap metabolic acidosis can be misdiagnosed as normal anion gap metabolic acidosis is hypergammaglobulinemia. Can you quickly tell me one example for hypergammaglobulinemia condition? Hypergammaglobulinemia. Anyone? Easy, right? Very good. Hema Darshini. It is multiple myeloma. So in multiple myeloma or even in chronic infections, when there is increase in gamma globulin is positively charged. Yeah, positively charged. So in this case, there is an increase in unmeasured cation concentration. Whenever there is an increase in unmeasured cation concentration, there is a decrease in measured cation. In measured cation, again, anion gap might look normal. Okay. So to avoid these misinterpretations of anion gap, whenever you find a high anion gap metabolic acidosis, and that you start calculating another value, which is delta-delta ratio. Okay. Now this delta-delta ratio is not only for you to find out misinterpretation possibilities, it is also to find out hidden acid-base disorders, because an increased anion gap metabolic acidosis can always mask a coexistent normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Do you understand this? An increased anion gap metabolic acidosis can always mask a coexistent normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Can any one of you quickly tell me one clinical condition wherein both these coexist? Increased anion gap and normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Anybody? And normal anion gap example is diarrhea. Increased anion gap example is ketoacidosis, right? Somebody has answered it. Salicylic acid poisoning. Yeah, so example would be, suppose a type 1 diabetic. Yeah, say a 15-year-old child presents with diarrhea. an acute infection, right? Diarrhea is an acute infection. The diarrhea causes normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. That because of the acute infection, there is precipitation of ketoacidosis. That causes increased anion gap metabolic acidosis. Do you understand this? So increased anion gap metabolic acidosis always masks a coexisting normal anion gap metabolic acidosis, or sometimes it masks a coexisting metabolic alkalosis. Yeah, it can mask a coexisting metabolic alkalosis. So yeah, ketoacidosis presenting with vomiting. Yeah, ketoacidosis will cause increased anion gap metabolic acidosis. Vomiting, what happens? You're losing all your acid. So that can cause metabolic alkalosis. And this is very typical when you have to find coexisting acid-base disorders, because it's just not just a metabolic acidosis, you're going to treat with alkali. But if there is coexisting metabolic alkalosis, you should step back before you start an alkali treatment. Okay, so to find out these hidden disorders, you have to calculate delta-delta ratio. As always, I'll first tell you the formula for delta-delta ratio, and then I'll tell you how to interpret it. Delta-delta ratio is calculated as anion gap minus 12 divided by 24 minus bicarbonate. Can you please memorize this formula? First memorize this formula, then I'll tell you what it means. Delta-delta ratio is calculated as the ratio between anion gap minus 12 by 24 minus bicarbonate. So what are we trying to assess here? Okay, if the metabolic acidosis is only because of an increased anion gap metabolic acidosis, yeah, then the decrease in bicarbonate should be exactly compensated by an increase in anion gap. Do you all understand this? If metabolic acidosis, or if the decrease in bicarbonate in this condition is only because of an increased anion gap metabolic acidosis, then the decrease in bicarbonate should be exactly compensated by the increase in anion gap, which means the ratio should be 1, right? Or it is 1 to 2. So if it's just an increased anion gap metabolic acidosis, yeah, if it's just an increased anion gap metabolic acidosis, delta-delta ratio will be anywhere between 1 and 2. Okay. Now, what if the delta-delta ratio is more than 2? If it's more than 2, it means the denominator is less. Right? It means the denominator is less. So when will the denominator be less? The denominator will be less when the bicarbonate value will be high. Do you understand this? This denominator, the whole denominator will be less only when the bicarbonate value is high. When will bicarbonate value be high? Then there is associated metabolic alkalosis. When there is associated metabolic alkalosis, the delta-delta ratio will be more than 2. So you're given an ABG report. Yeah, you first find out that's metabolic acidosis. The moment you see metabolic acidosis, you're going to calculate anion gap. You find anion gap to be elevated. Do not just say it's increased anion gap metabolic acidosis. Go to the next step. What is the next step? You calculate delta-delta ratio. If delta-delta ratio is between 1 and 2, you'll say, yes, this is a case of increased anion gap metabolic acidosis. I'm going to look for only a source of an abnormal acid. But if the delta-delta ratio is more than 2, it means there is coexisting metabolic alkalosis, which means I should find out what is the cause of metabolic alkalosis, should treat it, and I should not look at immediate alkali replacement. Do you understand this? That's about the value being more than 2. Now, what if the delta-delta ratio is between 0.4 and 1? Yeah, if the delta-delta ratio is low, it means the denominator is high or the numerator is low. Do you understand this? It means the denominator is high or the numerator is low. When will the numerator be low? Yeah, when will the numerator be low? When the anion gap is not that elevated. Do you understand this? The numerator will be low only when the anion gap is not that elevated as compared to the decrease in bicarbonate. So there is metabolic acidosis, but it is not only explained by a high anion gap metabolic acidosis, there is also a coexisting normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Do you understand this? If delta-delta ratio is between 0.4 and 1, it means the numerator is less. When will the numerator be less? When the anion gap is not that much elevated as expected. When will it not be elevated? When there is a coexisting normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Along with metabolic acidosis, there is also a normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Are you clear about interpretation of delta-delta ratio? I'm going to summarize delta-delta ratio alone. Delta-delta ratio is defined, or the formula for delta-delta ratio is anion gap minus 12 by 24 minus bicarbonate between 1 and 2. Please memorize this. If it's between 1 and 2, it is purely a high anion gap metabolic acidosis. If it's more than 2, it is not only a high anion gap metabolic acidosis, there is an associated metabolic alkalosis as well. This you have to find out. If it's present, you have to find it because the management would differ. And if the value is less than 1, if it's between 0.4 and 1, it's not just a high anion gap metabolic acidosis, there is a coexisting normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Clear? Yeah. So are we done with all these objectives? We have defined what is acidosis, we have defined what is anion gap. Based on anion gap, we have find out how to find out the type of metabolic acidosis the person is suffering from, based on which I told you how to find out the possible causes, right? And then if it's high anion gap metabolic acidosis, you have to calculate delta-delta ratio. And I also told you about possibilities of misinterpretations of anion gap. Now, for you to get more confidence, I caught hold of one of the ABG reports from our lab, yeah, which will tell you the significance of all the facts which we learned so far. But before I show you the report and before you get time to interpret it, let me quickly give you a recap on normal values. Yeah, what is a normal pH? Normal pH is between 7.36 and 7.44. Okay, and what is a normal bicarbonate? Bicarbonate value is 24. On either side, you have 3. Yeah, so it is 21 to 27 millimoles per liter. This is the normal bicarbonate. What is the normal PCO2? It is 40, on either side 4. So normal PCO2 is 36 to 44 millimeters of mercury. Okay. And then normal anion gap, I told you, is 12, on either side 2. So it is 10 to 14. Delta-delta ratio, this is how you interpret. If it's between 1 and 2, it is just increased anion gap metabolic acidosis. If it's more than 2, there is associated metabolic alkalosis. If it's between 0.4 and 1, it is associated normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Okay. Now, let's try interpreting. So look at this ABG chart. First, look at values. Yeah, pH. Is it normal or abnormal? It is low. If it's low, what is your diagnosis? It is acidosis. And this acidosis can be either because of decrease in bicarbonate or increase in PCO2. So look at the PCO2 value. It is decreased. So it's definitely not respiratory acidosis. Now look at bicarbonate. Do you see 2 bicarbonate values? Yeah, one is just bicarbonate P. The other one is bicarbonate PST, which is standard bicarbonate. That by itself is a different topic, but for now, standard bicarbonate is an expected bicarbonate value, then PCO2 is normal. Do you understand this? The machine calculates it. The machine predicts what would be the bicarbonate value of this person when the PCO2 of this person is normal. Yeah. So for interpreting ABG chart, do not look at ST value. You look at only this value, plasma value, right? So what is a plasma value? It is 4.7, which is definitely low. So decrease in pH is accompanied by decrease in bicarbonate. So what is your diagnosis? What is your diagnosis? It's metabolic acidosis. So whenever you see metabolic acidosis, what would you do next? You're going to calculate anion gap. Please understand this. Do not calculate anion gap if it's not a case of metabolic acidosis. It carries no meaning. Just because you're given an ABG report and just because you know in ABG, I've always been taught about anion gap, don't start calculating anion gap. You understand this? Anion gap carries a value only when it's a case of metabolic acidosis. Now calculate anion gap. What is the formula for anion gap? It is sodium plus potassium minus chloride and bicarbonate. So what is 143 plus potassium is 3.2, right? Minus what is chloride? 118 plus bicarbonate is 4.7. So if you calculate 146.2 minus 122.7, that's 0.5323. So what is the anion gap for this report? It's 23.5. Okay, so what is their diagnosis? It's increased anion gap metabolic acidosis. And if it's increased anion gap metabolic acidosis, the next step is calculating delta-delta ratio. So what is the formula for delta-delta ratio? It is anion gap minus 12. It's 23.5 minus 12 divided by 24 minus bicarbonate. And what is the bicarbonate value here? It is 4.7. Yeah, 23.5 minus 12 by 24 minus 4.7. And if you calculate, the delta-delta ratio would be 0.6. For this report, the delta-delta ratio is 0.6. Can any one of you, I'll give you 1 minute. I'll give you 1 minute to interpret it. What do you think is the interpretation? Is it just high anion gap metabolic acidosis? Very good. Somebody has answered it. Meghna, too good. Yes. So it's a combination of high anion gap metabolic acidosis and a normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Okay. So it's a case of combination of increased anion gap metabolic acidosis and normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. What do you think are the possibilities here? With this, you're not going to end, right? Based on the patient's other values, demographic values, or other clinical conditions, you're going to find out what possibility or what was, right? So look at the age here. Age is 18 years male. Yeah. So ask for diabetes history. If it's a known diabetic, then it is diabetic ketoacidosis, yeah, which is caused by some diarrhea. Possibility. I'm just telling you the possibility. I'm not telling you. So just based on this ABG report, you can say this probably is a case of diabetic ketoacidosis caused by diarrhea or something else. It can even be a renal tubular acidosis patient. Yeah, or it can be a person who's on carbonic anhydrase inhibitor for something else. So all these are causes of normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Are you clear? Yeah. So conclusion. Generally, I conclude my session pulling in all facts and concepts that are discussed in the session. And because I've been summarizing facts every now and then, I'll quickly go through this now. Anion gap is calculated only when it's a case of metabolic acidosis. Normal value for anion gap is 10 to 14. If it's elevated, it means it's because of production of an abnormal metabolic acid like keto acid or lactic acid or an alcohol metabolite, or it can be a chronic kidney disease. Okay. If anion gap is normal, then it's either because of GI loss of bicarbonate, either diarrhea, or renal loss of bicarbonate, example, renal tubular acidosis. And if it's high anion gap metabolic acidosis, then you have to definitely calculate delta-delta ratio to find out hidden disorders. If the value is between 1 and 2, it's just high anion gap metabolic acidosis. If it's more than 2, there is concomitant metabolic alkalosis. If it's less than 1, there is coexisting normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. Okay. Now, because all these have been already discussed, I would like to conclude this session asking you, how many of you have read Harrison? Harrison's textbook of internal medicine. I hope you all have read it. Yeah. Read Harrison's textbook of internal medicine. If you have not, please read it. Yeah, that's like a Bible. I know all your professors would have told you this. Harrison is like a Bible for medicine. Please read Harrison. Okay. And for those of you who have read Harrison, how long do you think it takes for you to read one page of Harrison? When I say read, it's not just reading. Yeah, to understand all the facts and concepts, to understand, to understand all these statements and to be able to apply it clinically, just one page of Harrison would take you 5 hours. Yeah, it would take 5 hours. But does that mean the book is at fault? The book is not at fault. Yeah, the book assumes that you know the 2 important subjects of medicine. One is physiology, the other one is biochemistry. Yeah, if you are very thorough in physiology and biochemistry conceptually, when I say learn the subject, it's not factual learning. Please remember, biochemistry is not always about cycles and flow charts. Yeah, it should be a conceptual learning. If you have learned these 2 subjects conceptually, then learning medicine through is a cakewalk. Yeah, you will feel it blissful to read the book. Okay. So reason is these 2 subjects, I would disagree if you say they are basic sciences. They are not basic sciences. They are not preclinical subjects. Yeah, they act as a bridge, yeah, between basics and clinics. Only when you understand the basic concepts and facts related to biochemistry and physiology, you will be able to apply medicine, pediatrics, or any subject is related to medicine. Okay, so that is the basis of our app, our speed learning app, which is basics to clinics. And we have given enough thought into it and we have made it as an app. So I've been teaching biochemistry and physiology for the past 16 years. And so based on my experience in handling MCQs and handling students and handling clinicians, we have put it as 12 topics. And all these topics totally cover 142 videos and bite sizes. I have mentioned as bite sizes because all these videos are not more than 25 minutes long. Yeah, because we know about the attention span. Videos are not more than 25 minutes duration. And totally it covers just 45 hours. So you can be a first MBBS student, or you can be a person who's preparing for next, or you can be a person who's preparing for a NEET exam, or you can be even a postgraduate, biochemistry postgraduate. That's immaterial. It's just 45 hours. If you can spend 9 hours a day, you can finish the whole biochemistry in 5 days. Yeah, it's useful for university exam. It's useful for any competitive exam. But my aim of putting up this app is not just for you to be able to appear for these exams, but for you to be able to apply biochemistry clinically. Okay, that assurance I can give you. And we have covered 1,500 MCQs. You'll be given test series also. And apart from all these features which are available in any learning app that's available in the market, what we are planned to do is to have weekly doubt clarifying session. You will be assigned a moderator to whom you can pass on your doubts, or you can pass on your doubts through the various groups we have. We have a Telegram group, we have a WhatsApp group. You can pass on your doubts through that. Those doubts will be compiled and weekly doubt clarifying sessions will be conducted. And apart from this, every fortnight, there is fortnightly clinical case-based discussions and monthly online live sessions will be conducted for select topics, blood gas analysis, electrolyte imbalance topics. Okay, so this is our aim. And you can subscribe to this app by following this link, or you can contact this person. So if you can also follow me through this YouTube channel. I'll be uploading videos every now and then, short videos, for example, introduction to glycolysis or on osmolality. So such short topics will be recorded and will be uploaded on this YouTube channel. You can, if you can't take up this link, this is the name, NEET PG Biochemistry, Dr. C. Shanmugapriya is the name of my YouTube channel. And this is my Facebook page. So follow me in any of these. I'll keep updating with facts and concepts. Let's together try to cherish the subject. Yeah. Any doubts? If you have doubts, you can text me through your chat box, or we can end the session. Yeah. So I hope there is no doubt. Thank you. See you soon. Thank you all.